The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all are safe and healthy at this time. My name is Henrik Bick. I'm the Communications and Social Media Strategist for Music Business Association. I want to say thank you for joining our first Fall Common Ground webinar series session today, Producing, Performing, and Potential Big Paydays in a Changed World. I want to thank Todd Snyder, the president of Guiding Star Global, and our panel of presenters today for putting the session on. Before we get started, I just have a couple quick housekeeping notes for the session and for music biz items in general. Once I intro Todd, I'm going to put myself on mute, but you feel free to ask questions, and if you have any technical issues, drop them in the questions box on your GoToWebinar dashboard. We will get to all panel questions at the end of the presentation, and I'll be handling any technical difficulties through the session if you need any help. Moving on to other virtual events that we have going on for Music Biz coming up. You can find information on all of the upcoming virtual events and our past events that we've done, the about 20 or 25 or so throughout the summer via our virtual events suite page. If you visit musicbiz.org, go to the events tab and click on virtual events suite. You'll be able to find all of our past interviews, our past webinar series, and everything else that we've done. We just wrapped up an excellent music publishing and rights event with our partners at Songtrust. Information on that is listed there. And you'll find information on the other pieces of the Music Biz Conference, which we've converted to virtual programs for this year. Speaking of those, coming up next week, Thursday and Friday to be exact, we have the first ever virtual law conference for Music Biz coming up. Which really branches outside of the music law field. Topics for the session are going to include the proper use of copyrighted material for things like political campaigns, specifically the context of the Neil Young lawsuit, the implications of the TikTok divestment in the US, the efficacy of the CASE Act and its small claims court, registering publishing rights for songwriters and producers, and the legalities of the new live stream format. So that takes place, as I said, next Thursday and Friday, September 24th and 25th. You can visit musicbiz.org and click the section on our homepage to learn more and register for that event. And then following that, we're wrapping up September with a virtual version of our podcasting summit brought to you by our partners with Grace Note. We just announced our keynote for the session. It's going to be an overview on all-encompassing audio platforms, featuring Liz Gately of Spotify and Eric Dine of Stitcher in a conversation moderated by Music Biz President Portia Sabin. Beyond that, the rest of the topics are going to include licensing music for podcasts, the A to Z of starting a new podcast, and what the role of metadata is in podcast discovery. And the whole session will kick off with a presentation from Grace Note on the new technology that helps to help users better connect with the new podcast in the flood of content out there that are most relevant to them. But enough about future events. Let's go back and talk about today's session. As I said, I want to thank Todd Snyder and Guiding Star Global for putting this together. I will put myself on mute and have Todd intro the session and today's presenters.
Well, thank you very much, Henrik. Sincerely appreciated that you were able to get us all online today. And most importantly, a welcome to everyone out there who's having an opportunity to get together here with us this afternoon. So thank you for that. Today's webinar topic, again, is producing, performing, and potential big paydays in a changed world. We've got a really fantastic group of panelists participating in today's discussion. We're going to take at least a discussion-like approach to it, so we can really kind of work through this. So hopefully you have a chance to hear a lot of different input on the subject matters at hand. Again, really looking to try to talk a lot today about 2020, and not in a negative sense, because there's certainly enough of that. But ultimately, it's been, I think, this collective group's experience over the decades to know that when the pressure's on, ultimately that's when you really have an opportunity to shine. Diamonds are made under severe pressure, stars are made under severe pressure, and 2020, ultimately, if you take a moment to really reflect on it, even though it's been a year of dramatic change and shifting in so many ways, at the same time, it is a year that has given us tremendous opportunities if we are willing to work hard for it and look for them. So as we go throughout the presentation, today we've got, again, a great group of people participating. Joe McMonigal is joining us today from Atomic as Chief Business Development Officer. Gary Earl will be joining us also here as producer and owner of Gary Earl Productions in Nashville. And good friend of mine, JB Anderson, producer and owner of Gaslight Studios in St. Louis, is also with us today. As we kind of begin to explore the opportunities of 2020, obviously one of the most difficult things that we've had to overcome, right, is just how to continue to collaborate and create. Certainly tools like the webinar system that we're on right now is but one example. Everybody's, I think, been zoomed out maybe in 2020, but nonetheless, we have found a way. Right? We have found a way to continue, and I'd like to kind of take this opportunity to turn it over to Gary, and we'll have a little bit of discussion about music creation and some of the tools that have come out of this chaos for continued real-time production of music in both film as well as traditional music industry realms, and then talk about what that hopefully will allow us to do going beyond 2020. Again, looking at some of the fantastic things that have resulted from this chaos we found ourselves in. So Gary, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Todd. So we produce songs, like a lot of you out there, obviously. We produce for artists, labels, songwriters, music supers, TV shows, movies, ad company, commercials, all kinds of sync. Our clients are worldwide, including Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony Awards. Our clients come from 20 countries in all 50 states. We've produced number ones, not only in the United States, but Asia, Europe, and a lot of work for TV and film like Batman, Pokemon, The Bachelor theme, Disney movies, HBO movies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, as all of you are painfully aware, no doubt, during this whole COVID shelter in place, so much of the music ground to a standstill. And not just live music venues, but also recording studios locked their doors, bands stayed home, et cetera. So this whole home recording studio revolution kind of took off, but really not a lot of change happens since most guys that sit at home producing tracks don't sing. And most of the performing artists with the home studios don't know how to build tracks or mix. They tend to just do an acoustic guitar or a piano with vocals and post on social media. All that being considered, a lot of our work winds up in sync. And so even though a lot of TV and film production slowed drastically, there were shows in the pipeline that were already done and still needed the sound effects, the music. Commercials continued and still needed music. TV and network promos continued. Trailers, video gaming, and some shows continue to film, particularly things that might be filmed in more remote rural areas of Canada, for example, some of the Hallmark shows. Hallmark is still cranking out 100 Christmas movies this year, and I don't think there was a lot of slowdown there from what I've heard anyway. So how do we deal with that? Now, in the past, we have, as I'm sure some of you, done things like sending a guitar player or singer a track, and then they'd record their part in their home studio and send it back to us. Or we might send it to LA and they'd go into a commercial studio, record it, and send it back. The obvious downside of this is that if you're the producer, you cannot coach the session and have them make changes on the fly. So there have been times when I had to have a vocalist redo a vocal up to 4 different times to get what I knew we needed for a broadcast quality vocal for a specific sync music super. So you wind up losing a week or two getting that done. And if you're on a deadline, That's not good. And just quite frankly, it's not good for the creative process to have things drawn out a long time anyway. So what happened with us here is early on during the shelter in place, we were introduced to real-time online recording in a Zoom with a major film composer whose name you all know well, and the head of a film company. And among other things, they worked on Batman, just to give an example. And I had heard about this equipment and software, but I thought, well, I wonder, usually things like that are technically buggy or to take a while to really work well. And I realized if it's being used by, major film companies and major film composers, obviously it works. So I went and did some studying, and there's, at least 5 or 6, maybe more different variations of this kind of software that are out there. Each one is really a little different from each other, and they all work slightly differently, and they all have advantages and disadvantages. But I picked the one that I knew was going to work for us, and what a shift or pivot that I think it's going to make going forward. By real-time online recording, I do mean everything that happens just like normal in a studio, except everyone is in their own home or location, and we're all engineering and performing at the same time. And it's not just me and a singer at her house. It also can be a pedal steel player in Nashville. It can be a keyboard player in LA. It can be a singer in Paris, literally, all performing at the same time in real time. So part of the way that this software works is it reads the lag time in the internet of everyone involved. And typically what I will see on my end, just looking at the technical things, I see usually I like to run at a very high quality, and we can run this at, for example, 320, this equal to 320 MP3 running at 48s, which is even a higher quality than CDs. And there'll be less than a half-second delay. And what it does is, so I will be in my studio here. I will hit the play and record button. It goes out to the players and the singer, or whoever you have on the other end. They literally perform on it, and it gets sent back to me. And it takes into account the time delays, and it syncs everything together. So when I'm hearing it on my end, I'm hearing about a half-second after they have done what they've done, but everything is in sync totally on my end. It's incredible. It's a game changer. It's a shift. It's a total pivot in the way that things can be done. What's cool about this is we can also communicate. So when a singer is singing, my wife Robin is a vocal producer and a voice coach. She can also voice coach the recording session in real time and communicate openly with the singer. Now, once we've done a take, then I can also play it back. And on the other end, everyone involved can listen in. So for example, when we comp vocals, let's say they've done 8 tracks, I will go through and play one line from each of the takes, and everyone can voice their opinion about, I love track number 3 or the blue track. That's my favorite. And we can discuss it and comp the vocals in real time with the artist if they want to be part of that. We can also edit and tune the vocals in real time with them listening in as I'm working here and communicating with them. We can also do the mix. So you don't have to do a whole project this way. I'm mixing a project right now for someone who's literally on the other side of the world, and I can put up the mix and send the link to her, and she can listen in as I'm mixing, commenting along the way and saying, I want to hear more of the tabla, I want to hear more of the sitar, whatever. And do it on the fly. It's a Bollywood project. So it's amazing because everything is synced up so well that it's literally almost like being in the room, but obviously it's not being in the room because, as all of us well know, there's nothing more magical than having everyone in the same room when everything's going down, because you can communicate also with your eyes, with looks, with body language. So yes, we can miss those things because even if you have a Zoom going on the side while we're doing this, we can see each other. It's not the same. But given that between COVID sheltering and between just plain wanting to use someone who is in Europe or on the other side of the United States, it's possible now where it did not used to be possible. So literally, usually we will do a lot of pre-production consultations, build a track, and then get the singer in, the artist into sitting and record them in real time. But now I can do all this even better than before because as I'm building a track, they can give me feedback too without traveling to my studio and being in. So literally the shift and the pivot is amazing. And I suspect that even once we have our vaccines and once the things are back to quote unquote normal, I suspect we're going to be using this a lot more ongoing. It's just amazing the fact that you can do it. Like I mixed a single for Norwegian group a couple of years ago. Their name is Harmony Drive. The single was Be There. It went to #1 in Asia. And I would make a mix, send it to them. They would listen overnight, make notes, send it back. I would make adjustments, tweaks, send it to them. Today, all I would have to do is send them a link, and I can do the mix with all of them listening in from wherever they are and commenting, and we can all do the mix in one session, real time. It's just, it's wonderful in a way. In an old school way, you could say, well, it's terrible because it's better having everybody together at once. Yes, but these are just tools that we can add to our arsenal. And just because we have the tools doesn't mean we have to use them, but they are available. And that's one of the things that I loved going to digital, was having automated mixes. For example, I remember being in the Disney film mixing room once. The console is incredibly long, and the director sits up on a stage in the original Star Trek director's chair, the one used by William Shatner. And you've got 2 or 3 guys mixing the vocals going on the film. You've got 2 or 3 guys mixing the music going on the film. You've got guys mixing the sound effects, and the director's barking orders to everyone as they go. But back then, one mistake and you had to start the whole thing again. And with digital automation, that changes things. Everything gets changed. In fact, the last time that I was over at Paramount and they were recording a 48-piece orchestra for a Star Trek movie, I walked in and I looked in the tape room. There was nothing in there anymore. And I looked at Arnold and I said, where? And he pointed down between his feet on the floor was a MacBook Pro, and the whole 48-piece orchestra was going straight into it so the composer could take it home that night. So, this I view as just one more continuing evolution in technology that gives us more tools. Doesn't mean we have to use it, but the fact that it's available keeps us able to work through, almost anything. So, Todd, I believe I'm pretty much done unless you have questions.
Thank you very much, Gary. And I think, again, like you said, the ultimate positive outcome from all of this, right? If we narrowed it down, aside from having greater awareness of a new tool in our tool chest, it's an opportunity for worldwide musician and artist collaboration like we've never seen before. And that ultimately sets the stage now for the next, decade of music and integration of cultures and ideas like we've never seen before. So again, even though there's turmoil and concern with the existing year, the bottom line is 2020 set the stage for worldwide artist collaboration like we've never seen, and that's pretty exciting. So I appreciate you, Gary, taking some time and sharing your insight with us on that today. So again, thank you very, very much.
One more quick thing, just wanted to say, if anyone has any questions, feel free to text or contact me on the website, and I'll answer anything I can. Thanks, Todd.
Thank you, Gary. Again, thanks so much. Next, basically, in our panel discussion for today, we have JB Anderson joining us from St. Louis. JB, certainly you've got an extremely unique perspective on this whole situation because one, obviously you're a bar and restaurant owner. Two, obviously a studio owner. And strangely enough, the most amazing thing about JB's place is that the both of those things are combined into one location. So you can actually sit and enjoy a beer at the bar and at the same time watch in and see what's happening in the studio with some live music and recording sessions going on. But obviously 2020 put a big quote unquote scratch on that record, or so it would appear if you had maybe not as positive of an outlook as what JB has. So I'll kind of turn it over to JB now to talk a little bit about some of the things that he has actually done and is looking to do for the remainder of this year that I think, again, changes the game.
Yeah, thank you, Todd, for the intro, and thank you for inviting me to this panel. It's an honor to be on here. Individuals like Gary and Joe and their pedigree, and I'm very flattered. So out of the gate, thank you. For those of you that are listening in here today, I would encourage you just selfishly, while you have your cell phone there, go ahead and check out our Facebook and Instagram page while I'm talking, because a lot of this will make more sense if you see it. And that's Gaslight STL. So what I'd like to do is just kind of take a quick minute and better describe the chaos that Todd illustrated there, because you hear bar, you hear restaurant, you hear studio, and it's all in one, and it's like some wacky world, where you got to buy an admission ticket to believe it. But basically, Gaslight Studio itself, Gaslight Lounge, was a vision that I had years ago, 20 plus years ago, while living in Chicago, slumming around into the studios on the northwest side of the city with friends. I had a large circle of musicians that I palled with, and the whole time we were in those amazing studios. I mean, we were in the same room often with Buddy Guy cutting a guitar track, and it's super cool. And me not being a recording artist, but really a lover of music, I always found the studio environment one of the most inspiring, artistic places that I've ever been. And even after traveling the world and seeing most of the major museums throughout Europe, nothing compared to a kick-ass studio, in my opinion, because you walk in and you see where the magic is literally made, the board that it goes into, and all those things that create the music. So I always had this idea in my head. I'm like, why is this not more public? Why can't we figure out a way to bottle this magic that occurs within really any recording studio for that matter, and get it to the public quicker, and of course they all looked at me like, you're whack, not gonna do it. With this is the way things are done. And if you fast forward to it was just over 6 years ago, I ended up losing both my parents very rapidly to cancer back to back. And out of that, I was young. I was only 38. And me and my younger brothers, I sat them down, and we had no real extended family. I'm like, hey, before you do anything stupid with what little we're walking away with, here's my crazy idea. And the crazy idea was Gaslight St. Louis. So we built it. And what Gaslight does is me having a finance background, I built the business like a mutual fund so that I would have multiple streams of revenue to protect the creative process. And the easiest way to do that, to try and find a way to create revenue, to give artists opportunity, I kept coming back to sell beer. Wings, ribs, pizza slices, and beer. People will pay for that because they pay for that no matter what. Let's use that, and we'll take that revenue, and that is what subsidized the creative process. So I sold beer, paid for the engineers, and our environment is it's a large studio. It's a very large recording room. What sets us apart is there is a 14-foot wide by 8-foot tall, huge soundproof glass wall that features into the lounge. Now, why that was important to me as a, coming from finance, being in the business world for a long time, I had a theory, an economic theory as to why it was important to attempt this. And that is, when you look at independent artists in general, really almost, universally speaking, any artist, the process of writing a song, rehearsing the song, getting it tight, getting the production right, and then getting in the studio and working on the tracking and your mixing and mastering and all this stuff. It's a very long process. And then if the goal is to send it out to the market, that happens, in the shelf life of a single. 80% of that work occurs before you even start talking about the single and marketing what is coming to the consumer. So in my mind, by putting that glass wall and creating a vibe, an environment that artists wanted to be in, I felt as if I was moving the bar further to the left as far as how quickly can we convert a fan? How quickly can we convert a customer that would be willing to engage this artist not only emotionally, but via social media by clicking the follow or clicking the like or tagging them in the post, but ultimately getting them to convert over into going to a show and buying a t-shirt and supporting the artist on a financial level. So that's where Gaslight started. Early in the process, what we did was, and really this was me looking at the industry as a whole, talking to a large number of friends that had been in the industry for 20, 25, 30 years. What became clear to me was that the music industry, and specifically the vertical nature of the industry and the limitations that artists have to actually make money, was just incredible to me. The fact that the art itself and the originators of all this art that really make 99% of all of the beautiful sounds are losing in the business side of the industry, with digital streaming taking away a large chunk of revenue opportunity. And then if you didn't have a team of publicists and touring managers engaged with you, it was obvious that it cost and took way more money to build a foundation that would enable an artist to actually make money that was above and beyond their music. And that was very frustrating to me. So video became a priority, because what I was looking at was the opportunity to create content, more studio sessions, get video out there, because it's one thing that when people listen to music, to a degree, if it's on the radio, if it's on a Spotify playlist, there's an expectation between the listener and the music, and that is the listener is like, it better be good. But how do we convert that person into tolerating the music and becoming a fan? It really stems through visuals and brand engagement. So we developed the video series called Gaslight Sessions, bringing the artist in, exposing them in the studio so that we could take the best of both worlds and give the fans and new fans something unique. So along comes COVID. COVID to me was, I didn't freak out, even though I had a restaurant and a bar and all those other things that were automatically shut down. COVID created an opportunity for me to take this message and push it even harder, because we knew that for independent artists in particular that have a decent social media following or a core fan base, those that are at 10,000 followers up to 100, 150,000, because above that, usually there's larger scale representation that comes into play. We knew that we could work with these artists and bring them into a naturally isolated environment, that being the studio, take a few extra precautions to make sure that everything was clean and sanitized, and we could keep social distancing proper, but we could give them a better product. And then this product would be feeding a marketplace that is literally starved for engagement. It only took 2 to 3 months, if that long, for most music fans to really just get burnt out with Facebook live streams, and people sitting on the couch with a cell phone video and just like, that's not music, nor am I going to be a fan, I'm burnt. So what Gaslight has been doing right now with Gaslight Studio Stories is our new platform. We're working with these artists to bring them in, focus on the music, put them in an environment, safely record it, 4K, mix master so all the audio is good. But more importantly, we spend half of the time of the series, which each episode is roughly 35 to 45 minutes long. Half of the time is a simple conversation. Who are you? What are you about? Where do your songs come from? Because our research and our intuition tells us that music fans, they choose people. They don't necessarily choose music first. They look for a brand, they look for an Instagram page, they look for things that seem cooler that they want to engage with. And then the music to a large degree is a byproduct of that relationship. So by developing this series, what we want to do is put front and center the core reason as to why people should be this person's fan. And then all this content, the way that it's developed, and working with Todd and his team, and from a technology standpoint and the ability to massage it over time and alter it, as opposed to putting something out onto YouTube or Facebook or other in which it's fixed. This content is moldable, so that as these artists roll out of COVID and by chance score a 30-day tour run, we can take that data and we can put it into the content, and it becomes merch that is alive. It's almost like an amoeba type of a product that will adjust to the market. So in all of these ideas and this concept and the development really stems from going back to day one. With my finance background, I knew that the only way artists can win today is they have to diversify, how they engage fans, how they convert the fans, and where they're going to generate the revenue. So looking at things such as craft beer companies and apparel companies and things like that as new delivery mechanisms to move the music out, those have become more and more critical in today's marketplace, because radio and record sales, it's just not where it's at for the independent artists. So COVID, everything that we're doing during COVID, we fully expect it to be viable model post-COVID. We're really excited to show the marketplace what we've been able to accomplish. So thank you all for your time. Thank you again, Todd, for inviting me on. And gaslightstl.com is the website, and @gaslightstl is all of our social handles. So I look forward to engaging with you guys moving forward.
Hey, thanks a lot, JB. And I think no doubt, right? I mean, ultimately, the times have forced new ideas, and ultimately, that at the end of the day, regardless of what that pressure might have been, we all have an opportunity to be able to kind of take a look at what's next. And I'm pretty excited to see and hear what's going to be next at Gaslight, because certainly you have always set a new standard, and pretty excited to see what the next 12 months are going to look like for you guys. So thank you very much for taking the time to join us today.
Great, thank you.
So as we're kind of wrapping up our panel discussion here today, myself and Joe are going to kind of wrap things up with a discussion about new creative platforms that are ultimately empowering artists to reach and engage fans in completely new and creative ways. From our company's perspective, we have kind of spent the last 5 years on development under one premise, that every performer deserves essentially their own online performance environment and how to build that and develop that in a way that makes sense for all parties involved. And ultimately, we're going to be looking at the end of the presentation to talk through some of the new financial models and really some exciting news, and that is ultimately from our standpoint in working with Joe and the team at Atomic, is essentially the introduction of our Global Artist Performance Center. And a lot of the presentation today as we wrap up is going to be based on that. So again, thanks Joe for jumping in here as we go. I know I've got the next slide here. I'm kind of just going to briefly talk through this because it sets the stage a little bit for what Joe and I are getting at. This is a new online show that we actually are producing in partnership with the top guitarists in the world and the top guitar manufacturers in the world, and it's called Riff Garage. We're actually utilizing classic cars as inspiration for the development of on-site music on the spot. Basically finding inspiration in a 69 wide-body Corvette and ultimately creating right then and there a riff and song that goes along with that particular point of inspiration. And why I'm bringing this up is one, yes, honestly, selfishly, it's to pitch a little bit of Riff Garage. But more importantly, Riff Garage for us really represents the embodiment of collaboration, integration, direct-to-consumer marketing on behalf of the artist community. So as we're working with the likes of Kenny Greenberg, Kurt Ellison, others, and we're creating that music, it gives the fan an opportunity to tune in, not only participate in that creation process with us, but actually at the end to have a chance to be able to purchase what they just witnessed being created. And all of this is happening with the support and participation of the industry and those that care most to the subject. So again, the bottom line here is there is a new way to go to market, and the convergence of these different technologies into this time and place, which is 2020. Historically, that's been our sweet spot, is being able to identify those. And as we begin the rest of the presentation here, I think you'll see that this is the basis for some very dynamic changes about to take place. So again, kind of an introduction to our concept, the Global Artist Performance Center, which is now actually ready for operation in the fourth quarter here of 2020 and beyond. Joe, would you like to kind of talk a little bit about some of the key elements for the Performance Center that are helping to drive some of these ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everybody, Joe McMonagle with Atomic. We're a 25+ year company in the event and live entertainment business, designing, producing, and fabricating elements for live events. And I don't have to tell anybody on this call that that's not really a thing at the moment. So we've been spending our time thinking of ways to service the market and push through these crazy times. And so Todd and I have been talking for a few months about how to bring opportunities to artists to continue to get their music out and to frankly generate revenue while the touring industry is on hold. So we're going to talk a little bit about today about the way we're considering and we're modeling the opportunity for live performance, revenue generating performance in a safe and very efficient and economical way. So Todd, I think we can move on to some of the next images here. So a brief look at our capabilities. As I mentioned, Atomic's 25 years of production experience, producing live events, designing and building events. Premier events are all around the world. You recognize some of the names on the screen here, the VMAs and the iHeartRadio festivals and other corporate events trust us with their execution of their vision, and that includes designing and building stuff and managing the overall production of the event. As we talk about specifically this concept, Todd, we can move on, I think, one more time here. We want to get into the sort of why would we be talking about this now? And there's a couple different reasons. Maybe Todd, we can zoom out for a minute and just talk about what the overall platform, what kind of itch are we trying to scratch here?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, right, it's not like live streams haven't been done before. This is not new tech, right? So it's a new application of it. So when we're talking about this Global Artist Performance Center, which the picture, kind of here kind of showcases a little bit of facilities that we'll get into a little bit more. There's a driving force happening here where, because all of these different technologies and capabilities are coming to bear at one time, being driven in large part by this enormous, obviously historical moment that we're all going through now as a result of the pandemic. It's now an opportunity to take things to a totally different level as a result of this technological and production convergence that's occurring. So when we're talking, live stream here, we're not talking about doing a live stream from your couch, obviously, to the world market via a Facebook Live. What we're talking about here is really a revolution that's occurring to where every artist or every label, we can put in your hands in a very short window of time a tool that allows you to have not only broadcast capabilities direct to consumer worldwide, but we can also integrate into that your song sales. We can integrate in the merch. We can integrate in research and analytics and polling capabilities of the fans. We can create interactive moments, experiences that are much different than what the world has been used to up until this point. But now things are about to dramatically change. So as a result, this location becomes essentially a point of broadcast to where if you want to put on right now to end the year a top tier artist show, broadcast out to the world with everything from pyrotechnics to state of the art production, as if like you were in Madison Square Gardens doing the show. It just so happens that you're utilizing your own branded delivery system to get it out there. That's now possible. And that's really what we're talking about here, is we're talking about, through the Global Artist Performance Center, being able to give those artists an opportunity to now reach the world at large in new ways. And again, it's as a result of this moment where we're seeing all of these different resources finally coming together in a way, technologically, creatively, from a production and design standpoint, to where the efficiencies exist and the flexibilities can be designed in and built to enable these types of things. So I think that hopefully that answered your why a little bit, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. One way I think of it, the social media revolution took power away from, broadcast networks and other sort of media bottlenecks that would otherwise control the way we hear about things, and put it in the hands of creators, of everyday people. So that similarly, but there's a difference between the influencer with 3 million followers and you and me showing pictures of our kids. There's an impact and a reach difference and a professional level of production behind the scenes. And maybe it's smaller on the little screen that we look at Instagram or Facebook on, but in this case, you can do a live event, you can do a live stream from your couch or your living room. And those, we understand the need for those and the reason why people have been doing those. But if we can provide a safe way and an efficient way and a cost-effective way to put on the big show, the real big show for the real big artists, the ones that we're accustomed to working with, and do it in a way that you can monetize and turn into a big payday for yourselves, for your artists, and frankly, from a live event business company, for us to be able to keep our people employed. And we're excited to be able to give that opportunity to our teams. So this facility that we're talking about here, for example, we have a local airport 10 minutes away, a private airport. So getting talent in and out of the facility is not a concern. You can fly private in. We're 10 minutes away. You can land a helicopter on the campus if you'd like. We're 200 miles, less than 200 miles from New York, DC, Baltimore, Philadelphia, regional train access to get crew in the building. This room that we're talking about here, we have 80-foot high ceilings and 30,000 square feet of open rehearsal space. So this is 2 arenas worth of space, or a stadium size worth of space. And just to give you a sense of scale, we don't need to use all that space. We can make a small, intimate moment happen, but we can also put on the big show. We can put pyro in this room. We can do anything you would see on a major tier one high grossing tour we can do here. And the model that we're talking about is sort of like a combination of the best of the festival world and the best of the touring world. You know, in both of those instances, you're amortizing cost. In the touring world, obviously, you're amortizing costs over a long run. In the festival world, you're amortizing the cost of infrastructure over many acts. So when we're talking about this opportunity here, we have the ability to build a set or multiple sets that can be flipped and changed really efficiently. And you can be running a stable of artists through, and we'll get to a little bit more of the business model towards the end of this. But back to the facilities here, as Todd's pointing on the screen, there's a giant black box in the left-hand corner. That's our studio building. It's rather large, 100 feet tall. It's a 4-story building that's open with clear span and a 1 million pound capacity to hang from the roof. So you can't do anything in here. You can't break this room, basically, is what we're saying. It's big. Across the parking lot, you see a hotel. This allows us the opportunity to create the quarantine bubble for production. So if you want to come in and keep your staff in a secure, in a safe place and in a quarantine place, we can build that bubble. We also have developed this sort of concept of a bubble within a bubble. So you have your production team who's quarantined in the hotel, and they're working across the parking lot. And we can have a separate quarantine bubble for talent and other key personnel that don't have to interact with the crew. We can keep all that separate. We can keep the catering separate. We can keep all the sort of guest flow or crew flow separated. Across the parking lot from the hotel, that big larger building in the back is a production live event production sort of powerhouse. We have custom set fabrication, custom set design, content creation, video display vendor, audio vendor, all the broadcast equipment that we would need. All of the vendors that support live event entertainment are in this building and on this campus. So that means we're not traveling crew from all around the country. We're not paying hotel costs and flight costs and dealing with the implications of exposure during this COVID time. Everyone's already here. So if you can, the concept basically is that if you have the talent and you can get them to come to the studio, we can create the safe environment, create the safe space to put on a very high production value performance. And through Todd's company's software and service package, get that out to your audiences and really monetize that for a payday for everyone involved. I think so. There's some stats on the building, as I mentioned. We have the bubble ability. We have green rooms and rehearsal rooms on campus. We have, huge amounts of resources for parking and other things that may be less relevant here. Local airport and access to the train station, and something like 25 production event vendors on campus. So we have all the resources we could really need.
And that is a key point, Joe. I guess one thing too that I know maybe people are at least wondering, right, is this all ready to go? And the bottom line is yes, we essentially have thought through every element to where if you're ready to begin to go global and perform at a different level with a tremendous amount of support behind you in this facility, yeah, we're ready, to the point of having contracted and have in place through NFL and NBA kind of authorized medical facilities, COVID testing with 24-hour results, protocols in place to make sure that, bottom line is, everybody who steps foot on this and throughout the course of a production run will be safe and secured as best as you can in the current conditions. And that's why we're so excited to really start basically rolling here next month to be able to hopefully get some exciting things underway for people.
Absolutely. So I think we can, so in the part, as Todd mentioned, one of the things we've been doing is trying to prepare ourselves for this moment, so that as we look through some design options, as we're about to get into, this has been cooked. This is not a crazy idea that we have out on a napkin sketch. We've thought this through. Our world is quick turnaround of the hardest and most challenging and time-sensitive events in the world. We're the people that you call when there is no option to fail, and that's what we do. So we are well prepared for this. As we walk through these set options, we'll look at a couple different tiers of design levels, tiers in terms of pricing, tiers in terms of preparation required, and we can just keep this in mind as a sort of a reference point. These are ideas that we have. we're able to execute these rather quickly. Any of these can be augmented or customized. We haven't yet met an artist who just says from a menu, yeah, I'll take that, please. So we're prepared to take any feedback and any ideas we present here and develop them with the creative team that's attached to any of the artists who would be interested in doing this. So the set option 1, this is a completely from stock kit. So these elements that you're going to see in this sketch and then in the following renderings are all elements that come from our modular systems design team, where we have these elements in storage on the shelf, plus some lighting elements and some staging and some flooring. And so the looks here, again, are developed camera focused, where our background is in a lot of live television and entertainment television. So we're always designing elements that take light really well, that look great on camera. And speaking of cameras, Todd, you can speak a little bit more about the opportunities for the ways we can imagine camera packages for these projects.
Well, exactly. So one of the keys, aside from designing everything, at least in terms of these initial 3 sets, to have a high degree of maneuverability, rapid deployment, rapid changeability, so that we can accommodate really tight production days over a sequence of a week or 2. We also took into consideration what our capabilities are technically to be able to upsell a presentation. So camera angles, and positions are key. And if we have an audience that's viewing from around the world, we want to be able to make sure that they have an ability to tune in at different levels. So we can literally put them in the front row. We can put them at an elevated position in the front row. We can put them on stage. We can put them sitting right over the shoulder of the drummer if they so desire. Those are all value-added upsell opportunities in this new world when you have platform capabilities like what we've developed over the last 5 years. And now we're in a position to be able to do that. So as you're looking at these different sets, understand that we're intending that it creates an environment and an experience for the fan who's watching at home, or no matter where they may be, with some very unique perspective opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very cool. So we can scroll through some of these images, and they show different lighting looks, some different camera angles, as Todd was just talking about. The next tier that we would show here, we'd incorporate some video product. So we have the opportunity to do some iMag. We have the opportunity to develop content. And if anyone's wondering, yes, we can develop that content if you don't have it already, especially on the quicker turnarounds. We'd be happy to pitch in with our content development team. And so iMag is pretty straightforward, obviously, but when we get into the custom content, that's something we can help you with. But so here's just a look, a more expansive look, more lighting elements, more video elements, giving a lot more flexibility to influence the way the set comes across. If we want to use the same set for multiple acts, we can completely tone the set differently with content and lighting. And you'd never notice it's the same thing. So a couple more shots. Here's some, representation of custom content. The next tier, we add some video elements and some more scenic pieces. Again, some of these are products off of our shelf. Those stretchy line products on the left and right of the screen are things we have in our inventory. We've designed and built. And then we have the video elements that are, again, iMag kit ready, content display ready. And as we go through, there's a couple more looks that would add a more intimate look. We added some video cubes on stage. These are all just examples of things we can do. Again, not to beat a dead horse, but anything can be augmented and customized. If you're looking to jump into this in the next 4 weeks, we would suggest let's take a look at one of our base packages here and flex from it. If you're looking to do something longer down the stream, longer down the line, we can start from scratch and we can dream together. So those, I think,
that's certainly a good transition point to, like you said, kind of get into the numbers, right, a little bit, because like I said, we've kind of gone through this to where we know it's all executable and deliverable within, certainly the time period of the fourth quarter and going into next year. So we'll take a quick look at ultimately what these different designs would normally cost if you were just doing a one-off event versus what we have really kind of built everything around, which is the notion of essentially taking up a limited window residency and maximizing your potential revenue return on that in a whole slew of different ways. So would you want to
Absolutely.
kind of work through this?
Yeah, totally. So as Todd mentioned, to get in the room and to build the base set, there's some hard costs. We have, rigging and lighting and staging and labor, all the things that go along with taking on a venue. When then we add the incremental costs, you can see there in design 1, 2, and 3, as we just looked at those would be added to that base cost. And so if you're just thinking that there's one act you want to do and you want to come in and do the one act, we're estimating 2 days of load in to give us time with COVID protocols, a day of shooting, and then 2 days to strike everything and get out. So you can see there the numbers 400 to 500 grand. And there's some wiggle room in all these as there's a lot of variables to work through. Incremental costs for the more intensely designed higher video product looks on design number 3. Now compare that or contrast that to the study on 2-week residency, as Todd mentioned. So this is 10 days of shooting capabilities. Maybe you're shooting once a day. Maybe you're shooting twice a day because you're cycling artists through that quickly. The opportunity to exponentially increase the return on this investment is pretty stark. So again, 2 days in, 2 days out, 10 days of shows on the low end to get the thing to open the doors. We're in that 800 grand range, and then you start adding the incremental design costs, which are the same for a one-off or for a 10 off or a 20 off. So the ability to really push content through and capture as much content and produce as much content as you can is the goal. And there's a couple ways to look at this. We can think about the designs being flexible, and they've been designed to be changeable, and we can strike and redeploy different looks rather quickly. We can almost build like a fly system, like a theater house would operate and move things in around. That's certainly an option to give different bands different looks. We could also design more of a festival concept where if it's a record label that wants to take over the space, there's a branded identity for that label. And all the bands are performing on that label stage. Maybe there's a sponsor that wants to become a title sponsor, so it becomes that sponsor's sort of festival stage, and the bands are cycling through. We can flex in and around any of those existing models and build our own as well.
Yeah, and to take a quick look at just some of the revenue potential, when we talk about big paydays, right? I mean, certainly it's not uncommon now for people to know that, yeah, there are some folks out there who are taking advantage of just the live stream environment and doing well, right? But what we're talking about here is if you were, like you mentioned, as a label, to be able to come in and over a period of 10 days, know that you may be able to take your top 20, 30 acts and do 20 to 30 shows over that particular 10-day window of time. If you had just on average for your major acts, 200,000 participating fans at a $25 ticket. Obviously, the gross revenue on that for that particular show is pushing 5 million. You're doing 2 to 3 of those shows a day, you could be pushing between 10 and 15 million on average across the course of those days over 10 days. Now, again, that's focused on just the ticket element for pay-per-view. What's unique in what we offer collectively is that we can integrate into that sponsors. We integrate in sponsor content that actually increases the value of that sponsorship exponentially so that the sponsors are hungry for it. And at the same time, we can integrate in the music sales. We can integrate in the merch sales. Everything else on top of that becomes value add, digital content across the board. So ultimately, that's just at a flat base ticket price. So you can see how this model applies through the Global Artist Performance Center for the largest top tier acts, and how it could be extremely financially advantageous for the acts and the companies that represent them to take up a 2-week residency over the next 3 months and beyond, and be able to start to do some things different. And this whole new environment creates a tremendous amount of opportunity to take a look at how you're beginning to interact differently with the artist fan communities, the fandoms. And again, this is all direct to consumer capabilities. Again, very, very different. But you can launch albums this way and offset the costs almost immediately and make it a revenue generating, obviously endeavor, even the creative process. You can launch certainly tours this way. You can integrate in charitable work to be able to help benefit, the likes of, for example, St. Jude's Children's Hospital, who we're going to be benefiting as a result of what we're doing with Riff Garage. So, this is on a big scale, yes. And the good news is that our teams are also well suited to be able to do this on a much smaller scale and can already at studios, obviously like Gaslight and others, no matter where it exists, for acts of all different shapes and sizes. But what we're talking about here today, at least Joe and I in this respect, is we have an ability to execute right now to really end the year in an extremely positive light and be in extremely good position going into 2021 to completely change how music is presented, how engagement happens, the level of experiences that people can have when they're participating in these type projects, and most importantly, we can all have a lot of fun while we do it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Todd, do we have time for questions?
I believe so. I know we're at just a couple minutes over, and I do see that we at least have one question that's come in. And I know the question is directed to Gary. Gary, what is the name of the tool? And I'm presuming that probably, Gary, if you have your contact information, we can share it with this person and they can speak with you directly on it.
Oh, yeah, I'll put that in right now.
But I believe that is the only question we have at this time, at least showing up, unless Henrik actually has any others.
No,
Yeah,
that appears to be it. If we have any questions in the last minute or so here, go ahead and throw them in the chat box. But to wrap up, I want to thank Todd, I want to thank Joe, JB, and Gary, all of you for a really excellent presentation. Thanks for sharing the information you did. And thanks for throwing your contact info up in the end as well, so folks can reach out in case they're looking for more information.
Appreciate everything. Thank you again, Henrik, for getting us together. Sincerely appreciate it, and we thank everyone for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Yep. Thank you so much for attending, and stay safe.